Welcome, Greenville, to another episode of the Green Tea Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Smith, joined alongside myself today. We're going to switch things up a little bit today. We got some great guests coming on here in just a little bit. Don't fret. My wonderful co-host Ashley will be back with us next episode, which I promise will be an absolute page turner in that next episode. So don't worry, we'll have Ashley back next episode. We will go ahead and jump into our events coming up here for the month of August. First and foremost, probably the biggest thing happening this month is the Little League Softball World Series here at Elm Street Park, August 2nd through the 9th. It is a 12-team tournament for those of you that are unfamiliar with it. Teams all over the continental United States and a couple of international teams. This year we have Japan, Italy, Quebec out of Canada, Puerto Rico, and the North Carolina host team this year is Johnston Little League out of Clayton, North Carolina. So super excited about that tournament kicking off. It's free admission. ESPN hosts almost all of those games online as well, so it's kind of a cool experience for if you're not able to come into Elm Street Park. But again, free admission, so come on down anyways. Next up, a city council returns the week of August the 10th for a pair of meetings. So after their summer break, they get back underway the week of August the 10th. And lastly, Greenville Police Department's Chief Tyndall will be officially retiring in the month of August. So we want to thank Chief Tyndall for all of his years of support and service to the city of Greenville and Pitt County as a whole. So super excited for him to enjoy hopefully a little bit more relaxed life in the future. So that'll wrap up our events category here, and we'll take a quick break here on the Green Tea Podcast and bring back some project updates for you here right on the other side of this break. Don't go anywhere.
Quick break to say thanks to our favorite sponsors. You. The Green Tea Podcast is made possible by the citizens of Greenville. Keep doing great things, Greenville. We'll be right back with more tea.
And welcome back inside of the Green Tea Podcast. Added a guest, Mr. Brock Letchworth, the public information officer, also my boss. So this is going to get interesting because I'm running the show instead of you running the show. So this is going to be fun and interesting. But welcome on to the pod.
Thank you, Ron. I have all the confidence in the world in you, and been enjoying the first few podcasts, and glad to be here today to be a part of one.
And I know you're not just saying that, so it makes it even better. Okay, so as we normally do for our project updates section, normally you actually provide us with the updates. So this is kind of fun to have you in to provide some project updates for us. The first thing we were going to talk about is the Woodland Park. And so you've got some updates there for Woodland Park.
Yeah, so, obviously a lot going on in the city of Greenville. Anyone who's here knows that. Just to highlight a couple of the more significant projects that we have ongoing. You mentioned Woodlawn Park. So that one is one that some might recall a few months ago, the city received an accessible parks grant for $500,000 to help convert Woodlawn Park to make it a little more ADA compliant and make some improvements there, such as I think the park had the oldest playground equipment in the city dating back to like the mid-90s or so. And so with this $500,000, the city has a $100,000 match. We're going to use some facility improvement grant money, I think, for a portion of it. And the updates are going to include replacing that playground equipment that we talked about, adding a multi-sport court to the area, outdoor table tennis, ping pong, cornhole, outdoor foosball, some improvements with surfacing and things like that. So when all said and done, that park where it is located off of North Woodlawn Avenue in the Tar River University neighborhood area is going to completely be converted to a modern day park that you would come to expect to serve a community like that.
Yeah, and I think you're starting to see a lot of that. Obviously, we've got two other ones to cover as well. You're seeing that Greenville is constantly investing in its parks in one way, shape, or form and expanding it. And again, some of those ADA compliant things too. You're seeing them on the streets. So some of the street maintenance that's going on, they're putting more things to help people that need those needs. Mm-hmm. So moving on, North Recreation Complex is another one we've got listed as well. What do we got going on there?
Yeah, so this is the sports complex that's been in the works for some time now. The city it has been, as you mentioned on previous podcasts, looking at converting 4 of the existing rectangular fields that are there to synthetic turf. I learned something in this process. Maybe you knew this. Maybe some of those listening did. But petroleum is used to make those synthetic turf fields.
I did not know that.
Yeah,
I knew there were rubber, like tire pellets were what makes the stuff, the black stuff on the dirt.
And
but-
apparently the blades of turf and so forth that are there are also all derived from petroleum-based products. So,
Interesting.
with that being said, though, we all know what's going on with the price of petroleum.
It's going up a little bit.
Yeah, so the bids initially for the conversion of 4 of those fields came back really high. And the city had to go back and make some adjustments to the scope of work and what we're doing there to kind of make it fit it within budget. We just recently closed the bid process for when it went back out again. Hopefully going to be able to get that construction started, pretty soon before the end of the year, and have by springish be ready to host some tournaments out there on rectangular fields at the North Rec Complex. I know that staff from the Visit Greenville NC entity and then city staff from our Recreation and Parks Department have already started going out and trying to recruit tournaments to come to the area because, we're working on our product, we're working on the fields and everything, but we've got to go ahead and get ahead of it and try to get some people here to play on them. And then I think once we start getting people in here, we'll build, some momentum, and it'll be a little easier to attract those types of things.
Yeah, I think part of that too is like those tournaments sometimes are scoped out a year, 2 years in advance with some of them.
Yeah.
And so the earlier you can get going with them, the better.
And if we could get in a rotation as well with those tournaments, because they hit the same places, the same time of year every year. And if we could, create something like an annual soccer tournament, we do have the Beast of the East here,
Sure.
and I'm sure that they will want to utilize those fields to be able to expand the number of teams that they can have participate in that tournament each year. But along with that conversion of the fields, though, the city is also looking at and moving forward with all things indicate that we'll be moving forward with a property exchange that will allow us to get some nearby property and convert that to diamond fields, where sometime maybe within the next couple of years we'll be able to have baseball, softball as well played out there.
Which, I mean, again, it's the area.
Yeah.
And it's such a huge sports town, and there's a huge group of people that want to help expand that, and it's great to see that as well. Speaking of outdoor recreation,
well, and I'm sorry to interrupt,
No,
but to
go
your
for it.
point, and that area out there is just prime for the development too around
it
it.
is.
So you put the sports complex out there, and you've got all that open space. Hotels, retail, restaurants, and everything can start to build around and take advantage of the tourism and the people coming in to participate in those tournaments out there.
100%. Final thing we've got in our project updates is a little bit, we touched on it at least, if not the last podcast, the one before, but we had mentioned Wildwood Park and some of the expansions and the fishing pier and all that stuff's going on there. And obviously you've got some updates on that as well.
Yeah, everyone who knows Wildwood Park, that the east side of the park, we've done a lot of things over there. You've got the fishing pier, you've got the kayak launch, you've got the shelters for events, you've got the trails, mountain bike trail, walking trails, you've got the BMX and the pump track there. Now we've moved on to the west side. We did manage to extend the trail around the lake on the west side, and now we're starting to look at connectivity for connecting back to River Park North, but also adding some amenities over there, such as a picnic shelter, a fishing pier, a kayak launch, a new driveway for access to that side, parking lot, etc. So we're really going to start to activate that west side as well. And then eventually the idea will be, River Park North, the west side will be connected, and you'll be able to walk from East Side Wildwood Park all the way to River Park North, and hopefully in the future connect back over to Town Common and our Greenway system.
Yeah, as for people that love walking, which is not me, I'm not somebody that would enjoy walking that distance. There are a lot of people that is, for one, it's breathtaking just going through there and walking through it, or biking it for that matter. But it allows people to disconnect and just disconnect from their reality, connect with nature, and just be able to kind of reset their lives if it's during their lunch break. And that's something where, if you're going around that whole trail, you get to see a whole lot of different things as you're going out.
You find yourself in areas where you don't realize you've got a city of 100,000 right there, beside you. Yeah, and just a timeline as far as that goes, looking like probably a spring completion on all of those. Contract will go to city council in August, and then it gets activated. We've got to set up the construction. Figure there's 150 days to complete everything. So looking at probably early spring.
Okay. Well, great. Well, Brock, thank you for all your project updates. Normally, I'm used to having a sheet of paper in front of me, so it's nice to have the source with our project updates. So that'll take care of that segment here on the Green Tea Podcast. We'll take one more short break, and we'll be back with a little bit more here. And, well, I guess we'll call it tea. Yeah, we'll call it tea. We'll be back with a little bit more tea on the Green Tea Podcast right after this. Behind every great story in the Emerald City is a neighbor with a vision. That's why the Green Tea Podcast is proudly sponsored by the citizens of Greenville. Whether you're a pirate, a professional, or a lifelong local, this show is for you, by you. Greenville, we are growing together. And welcome back into the Green Tea Podcast, segment 3. We've kept Brock around for just a hair bit longer because you are a pillar of information. I mean, it literally is in your title, information officer.
It is.
Public. You tend to have a lot of things that are inside of your brain, and one thing that you are 100% a part of.
Can we clip that for me to provide to my wife?
100%.
Okay, thank you.
100%. Whenever you need a little bit of backup ammunition, be like, here you go, hon.
Yeah.
Just remember this. But one of the big things that you have been a part of for as long as I've been here is the Good Neighbor Initiative. And while that is specific to, a certain section of the city, I wanted to expand on kind of some of those principles that are within that Good Neighbor Initiative, and kind of help the public understand a little bit of some of these things that when you come in as a new resident or you're buying property and you're becoming a landlord, there's some of these things that a lot of people just don't understand and just don't know.
Sure.
It leads to frustration. It leads to confusion. And so what I'm hoping to do here is to kind of give people a little bit of insight as, hey, August is the time where we see a lot of influx of new people coming into the city, new students coming in. You got outside housing that deals with a lot of new residents and tenants and things of that nature. So I kind of wanted to get into a little bit of a conversation on that and kind of give people some information.
Yeah.
So one thing I wanted to start off with is just housing conditions. I think a lot of people don't understand that, yes, there are city ordinances and yes, there are different things that, encompass, a house, but there are a lot of times that the tenants that, sign these rental agreements don't know, oh, this is actually my responsibility. This is my landlord's responsibility. And if somebody comes to me and says, hey, you've got to do this. Actually, yes, you do, but it's actually your tenant's, your landlord's responsibility. And although you're the point person because you happen to live there, so this is one of those things I wanted to talk about is some of those common violations that we see and kind of what code enforcement does in this area, because code enforcement covers a lot of some of these issues that we see come up. And so I kind of wanted to kick off the conversation with kind of what does code enforcement do and address within the city when it comes to some of these tenants?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, I think you hit the nail on the head. This is a really good time to be talking about this because there is an influx of people that come in. We do have a major university right here in our backyard. And
in case you didn't know.
Yeah, and with that brings a lot of students into the area. Some of the freshmen live on campus, of course, but then you have a lot of students who reside in off-campus housing. And to your point, I think that one of the things that we all have to be cognizant of is that they just don't know some of this information, some of this stuff that is their responsibility and is not. And then that's where it kind of falls on the city and our police department to code enforcement, police department to, patrol for some of these things that are just intended to keep the city's neighborhoods safe, healthy, well-maintained. We want to make sure that they're all up to a certain standard. You talked about code enforcement. So code enforcement is one piece of that. There's several things that code enforcement will ride around. They're assigned to different division or different sectors of the city. They patrol those sectors and look for some of these things that may be, not in line with what city ordinances require. Things like overgrown lots, weeded lots, trash, junk, debris in yards. The minimum housing standards that you talked about, those types of things, junked abandoned vehicles, people who are parking in places where they shouldn't be parking, unsafe or abandoned structures, those types of things. And they do all that, and it's not a gotcha kind of thing. It's an educational piece. The whole idea is to get compliance through education and talk to someone. Oh, you've got a lot that's the weeds are grown more than 10 inches, city ordinance says that needs to be cut, you need to make sure that you maintain that or arrange for someone to, that kind of thing. So that's where code enforcement comes into this. And then, police also does a little bit of, does some other patrolling and things related to neighborhoods. And we'll talk a little bit about that as well. But the Good Neighbor Initiative, as you said, is when we bring all these entities together, police, code enforcement, representatives from East Carolina University, representatives from local neighborhood associations, and we go out door to door, and we're talking specifically about the off-campus housing for students here. Yep. We do this each August, and we go door to door to kind of educate folks on how to be a good neighbor and how to what some of these requirements are that they may not be aware of. But yes, as you said, code enforcement probably plays the most significant role in making sure that all the property maintenance standards are upheld throughout the city.
Yeah, and I've been out with our code enforcement folks, and it's almost like the last thing they want to do is send a violation or write a violation. The first thing they want to do is if they can make contact with the person who they've got a abandoned car somewhere or anything that matter, they want to be. Here's a pamphlet. The amount of brochures I've seen in some of their vehicles is hilarious because they want to make sure they've got every kind of information they could possibly give somebody. Go, hey, here's all the information. No, I'm just not making up a city ordinance. Here it is in writing so you can see it and you can understand and get a little bit more information than maybe the 10-second interaction you have with that officer. But I know that's one thing. And the other part of it, too, is it's kind of fun walking out the streets when we do the Good Neighbor Initiative, specifically for those off-campus housing. Because a lot of it...
Waking people up.
Most of the time
like 3 in the afternoon.
At 3 in the afternoon because they had class in the morning and they're asleep, or they're athletes and they're asleep. But it's fun going out there because some of them, even last year, I remember it vividly, we had a student that was in an off-campus housing and he knocked on the door and they came out. And again, the crew that I was following had representatives from all the ones that you had mentioned just a minute ago. And he was so happy to see us out there. And he had a couple of questions of, I'm the one that around here that tries to keep everybody in code because I don't want to have people coming out here and, harassing us or whatnot because we're doing something we shouldn't be. And it was kind of interesting to see an ECU student that was taking initiative to kind of be, no, we know what we're allowed and not to do, at least at my house and here. I'm trying to educate the new people that come in. Mm-hmm. And so it's the first time I had seen both city staff and people from around those different organizations already have somebody in place that was already doing those things for them. And it was just kind of reinforcement. And the interaction between those two groups was amazing because it's like, yeah, we're trying to do what you guys are asking us to do. And it was a great reaction.
That is impressive on the part of the student. I'm going to share a quick story with you. When I was at East Carolina University and living in off-campus housing in the Tar River University neighborhood, I was in a house that had no heat. And I won't even explain how we heated the home because it was so unsafe. It was a typical poor decision by a college student.
Sure.
But my point is, we didn't know that that was something that needed to be reported. That is a landlord's responsibility. And we'll talk hopefully a little bit about what tenants are required to do and what landlords are required to do. But that's something that we didn't know. So that just again is evidence of the educational piece and just making sure that particularly the students who move into the area are aware of some of these things. But what we're going to talk about is a citywide thing. Yes.
But I think that it's one of those things where, you hit the nail on the head here and you're leading me into my next point. You have a lot of these tenants that come in and they're students that they want to live off campus for one reason or another. And with that comes the advantage of, you don't have to have X, Y, and Z with student housing. But now that you've come off, you actually lose some of those support services because you already know where those support services are. Mm-hmm. You move outside of that, it becomes a whole nother ballpark.
That's right.
And so I feel like that transits also to other people coming in the city that are just renting property and don't know. And guess what? You don't have to be a student for these things to apply. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about here.
And some of the minimum housing stuff applies to apartments, things like that that we have in the city as well. And let's get into it.
Yeah. So one of the things we wanted to talk about is what do the tenants need to maintain in their properties?
So tenants are expected to make sure that the property, once they move in, is kept in a safe, sanitary condition. They're responsible for maintaining the lawns. As we mentioned, lawns are not supposed to grow higher than 10 inches. You don't want to store abandoned, inoperable vehicles on your property. You've heard I've heard a commercial on the radio. It talks about the bush car, the car out back that's got the bush growing in it. You
Yep.
know, yeah, we don't want
don't want that.
No. Additionally, you know, there's a code violation for parking on unimproved surfaces. So essentially in your yard. So you're not
That
parking
word
in the
threw
driveway.
me off when I started working here because I walked out and
I
said,
agree.
what is an unimproved surface? I'm like, that doesn't even sound like that should be a thing. And then you're like, basically the grass. I'm like, so not the driveway. They're like, yeah. I was like, can't we just say not parking in the driveway? But I'm like, I guess unimproved sounds better.
Right. So too often, you know, you have 4 vehicles, but only room for 3 in the driveway or something. So somebody ends up parking on the front yard, or that's parking on unimproved surface. Anywhere except for in designated on-street parking or in your driveway, is parking on unimproved surface. Again, something that I bet a lot of people don't even think about and don't think about as being a violation.
Yeah, I mean, I do it on my own. Again, I'm not in Pitt County, but I'm outside of the city limits anyways. But that's something that even in my house, technically, I'd be in violation here in Greenville because we have a driveway that is big enough. But when it comes to me and my wife, I don't like to have to constantly move my car. So
I was
I'll
just
pull
about
off
to say,
to the
you
side.
don't like to have to let her out.
No,
or, yeah.
so and again, I just like to pull off to the side, and it is there are ruts from years of that being the case before we even bought the house, and so but that's a situation where a lot of people go, oh well, that's the way that it was before. I'm totally fine,
Right.
not realizing that somebody's going to come and inform you can't do that.
Yeah, the another one that's really big with the students, but then some others as well, is storing indoor furniture outside.
Yes,
So the couch on the indoor couch on the
on the front
porch, or even indoor items such as tables, the beer pong tables out front in the yard, those types of things. That's something that also is a code violation. And then another thing that tenants can do and certainly need to maintain is the trash and debris. Don't let it get built up.
yeah.
When you take your trash out to the street to be collected by the city, make sure that you pull it back. Those types of things. We've actually started. There's a fee now if you let your cart sit for too long by the road. It's just, and that's just being respectful of your neighbors and being a good neighbor, as we talk about.
It's also weirdly a safety thing too, because you think about some of
It
the
is.
thunderstorms we have in the southeast. That some of them things can blow, and you got an empty trash can. Those things aren't necessarily heavy, and those things get blown and it hits somebody's car. You're going to be in trouble for that more often than not.
That's a good point.
You know, I just thought about that. I was like, yeah, if you just leave it on, like, wow, I'll leave it here one more day. Storm blows through and it hits somebody else's car. Guess who's reliable for that? You.
Yeah, I mean, so those are some of the things that tenants can do and homeowners can do to try to make sure that they adhere to the city codes.
All right, so let's flip the other side of the coin here. And what should landlords be responsible in covering?
Well, first of all, sound buildings. Sound buildings and structures. That's one of the most important things for landlords to working plumbing, working electrical, working heating, and air, the HVAC unit. I just told you what
Still
we
a soft
went
spot
through.
for you, I see.
I mean, I wish I'd have known that back then. Life would have been a lot different for those couple of years. I can tell you that. I think that when you just think about minimum housing standards, that's what the landlords are responsible for. If you're a tenant and there's some things that you would want to contact your landlord if your HVAC is not working. Contact them if you have plumbing leaks or issues with your plumbing. Contact them if there are like mold-like conditions within your home, pest infestations, or doors and windows that just don't function properly, that type of thing. Are things in which if you're a tenant, those are the landlord's responsibility, and you need to be reaching out to them. And if some of this stuff being a code violation, it's important to point out that the proper procedure for that is to reach out to the property manager or landlord before contacting code enforcement.
I was just getting ready to ask you kind of what that process looks like as far as coding the violation, because I feel like sometimes they just assume that, like you did. Okay, well, our heat doesn't work. Oh, well,
that's too bad for us.
Too bad for us. I guess we'll just suffer for 4 years without heat.
Yeah. I mean, the process, we were talking earlier about how the idea is not gotcha. It's not, we don't want to issue any kind of fine or anything like that. It's education and compliance through education. And that's shown in the process, the whole code enforcement reporting process. When you first identify a problem, it could be something that, like we were just talking about, where you're a tenant and you have an issue with your property manager, or it could be that a neighbor of yours is violating some codes, and and that's not respectful to you. So the first thing you do is you report it with property management first, and then if that doesn't work, then you move on and report it for code enforcement. Code enforcement will come out. They may issue a notice of violation, and then there's a compliance period. So that's where we're not, it's not instant fine or anything.
Yeah.
There's a period to rectify whatever those conditions are, and then there's a reinspection, and then further enforcement if necessary. So that's kind of how the process plays out.
I think it's helpful too, again, knowing that it's for good, bad, or indifferent. It's not an immediate fix, at least with the code enforcement side of it, is okay, I've got the city support now. My property manager's not doing anything about this issue. I've got support, but knowing that it does take some time, because you almost really need to make sure all your ducks in a row. If we've tried this many times, we've done all these different steps to make sure that by the time we get to the end, you've exhausted every option available, because sometimes those property management companies come back and say, well, you didn't give us notification.
Yeah.
No, look at all the notification we gave you, and here's photos, evidence of all that stuff. So again, it's nice to have that kind of go through that. One of those procedures we talked about, or you mentioned just a little bit ago, was trash. So I want to talk a little bit on what kind of procedures there are for trash within the city.
In what way? What do you mean?
Well, specifically, you talked about, if the trash is picked up, pulling it back, but also the ways that we have for different kinds of trash to be picked up.
Sure,
sometimes that comes into play with, again, this is not a student-wide, it's a city-wide thing where if you have something you need to throw away that is a bulky item, how does that process work? Because it affects everybody, not just the students.
Sure. Anyone moving or anyone replacing something, they may have a bulky item. What you would need to do with that is you place it out curbside, and then you call our Fleet Services Sanitation Division, which would be 329-4522. And they will arrange to come out and pick that up for you if someone else doesn't pick it up before they get to it.
Correct. Sometimes it works like that. You're like, here's a perfectly good futon that I'm not wanting anymore. And all of a sudden the next morning, it's gone. Like, all right, well,
right. Yeah. So
I'd rather be picked up in one way, shape, or form.
But that you can't just place it curbside. You do need to call to make arrangements. And then also back to what we were saying when it comes to trash procedures, just making sure you pull your can out. Have it out by daylight, by first daylight on the day of pickup, and pull it back by, sunset on that same day.
And I think there's something important with that too, is if you are in a property that has, you're not throwing stuff away in a dumpster on the property, and you actually do have refuse cans, which throw me off because I'm just used to calling them trash cans, but I know they're called refuse cans, is making sure that you know when that pickup date is, because sometimes that's one of those things where by process of elimination, if you wait long enough, you'll know what day it is by looking around when everybody's putting their cans down.
That's the reminder.
That's the reminder of, oh no. But I feel like that's also something you can check in with a property management company too, as well, or whoever your landlord is, to know, hey, when is my pickup date? And you can also call the city and ask that question too, but I feel like those are...
Or you can search online, greenvillenc.gov.
Look at you, pushing it to the website, we go. It's almost like you work on that thing.
Yeah.
So we'll go into another section here.
Let me just get real quick, Ryan, give the number for code enforcement. If anyone feels like they have some kind of issue that may need reporting, it's 329-4110 for our code enforcement division. Or if you want to email, you can email codeenforcement@greenvillenc.gov.
See, again, the man with the plethora of information in the head up there. Gotta love it. So let's kind of continue on here. We got a couple more topics to cover with this. One thing that we see is, again, doesn't matter who you are. A lot of people will have pets coming around. And there is an actual agency here in Greenville for that, our Animal Protective Services Division, that falls within the Greenville Police Department. Mm-hmm. Let's talk a little bit about kind of some of those responsibilities, pet ownership wise again, I feel like it's pretty simplistic. Keep your dog on a leash if you're in your property. Pick up its waste. It's not that difficult.
That's it, man. There's not much to talk about.
I wanted to make sure I wasn't missing anything, because it's just one of those common sense things. But again, it's making sure people know that there is somebody available within the city that you can call and you can report if you see a animal running around that doesn't appear to have that. You know what I mean?
I mean, I think from the good neighbor standpoint, the things you just mentioned, leashing your dog, cleaning up after your pet, that's pretty important as far as the good neighbor side of things. But then, I mean, I guess it's a good neighbor as well. But one other thing is that Animal Protective Services would help with is if you see any kind of animal being mistreated too, you can report it through Animal Protective Services. And did you give the number for them?
I did not.
Okay, it's 329-4387 for our Police Animal Protective Services Division. And they, are the ones that if you see a dog wandering that, looks lost, looks like they're trying to find their way back home or trying to find a new home, you could also reach out to them as well.
Decided to answer a little dad joke in there. Just a little Homeward Bound movie joke. Love that movie. Girls, like you're like firing off numbers like a 6-shooter over there, and I love it because you asked that. And I said, listen, I only have one number written down here, and it has not to do with Animal Protective Services. So love the fact that you already have that. Something we've kind of talked a little bit about, that everybody's favorite topic is parking around the city. But
all right, that's it. I'm out.
And see. But I feel like something that it's at least within the scope of like just being a good neighbor. It's nothing about, city lots and street parking and things like that. I feel like within just being a good neighbor within Greenville, it's understanding that don't park on unimproved surfaces. That was a big one we talked about earlier. But you have those on-street parking spaces, and I just kind of wanted to get your feedback on, okay, you have somebody that obviously is having a couple of people over at the house, and they're parking on the street, and there's not on-street parking. And I just kind of wanted to get your input on like how frustrating that can be from multiple people's perspectives of if you're leaving your car there, it's an issue. Staying there for a night is not an issue, but it's when it becomes repetitive, kind of that frustration that can build also to the city side of it, because then the city has to get involved.
Yeah, I mean, I think that when it comes to parking, first of all, you need to know if you're in a permitted parking area. That's one thing that's very important when we talk about residential neighborhoods, is if you're in a permitted area, you need to make sure that whomever's parking there has a permit if they're parking during the designated times. That's a big one, particularly when it comes to our students and the neighborhoods in which some of them reside. There is permitted parking. So, but yeah, it's a matter of being a good neighbor again, being respectful of other people's space as well. Any parking related issues, we have parking enforcement for the city, but we prefer that folks can handle those on their own.
You would hope so.
Yes. Mm.
All right. So our final topic here is one that I've been waiting on here a little bit, just because we made a little bit of a PSA video for this a couple months ago. I feel like it might have been last year. It's escaping me. And we used a very retroactive way of informing the public on having social events outside and within their own neighborhoods. And as someone who has much better hair than I do, just within looks, and you just have more in general. We did a mullet video that was one of the favorite things I've done in quite a while. Also, your enthusiasm in driving home the ability of we've got to do this is just even more hilarious, because when you walked in the office and you had, look, I bought the wig, and I thought you were kidding, and then you pulled it out. I was like, you're not joking. We actually have a mullet wig to shoot this video, kind of explaining to people that if you're going to have some social gatherings, we don't need to have them in the front yard. Keep them in the back. And I love that kind of parody that we made with, business in the front, party in the back. That's with the whole mullet. And for one, I think the video, besides the fact that I created it, is amazing. I think it's a messaging that works really well too. And it's something that falls within, the scope of the police department with noise complaints and those different things. But it falls into the furniture stuff we talked about in the front yard. And so I just kind of wanted to get your opinion on these social events and how we do things within the city to kind of encourage people. Hey, we're not saying don't do it. We're just, don't do it in the front yard. Do it in the backyard where you're kind of confined and it's not a public nuisance kind of in its own way.
Yeah, there's a couple things when it comes to the social events. One, very important, I think, as you just said, and it kind of ties in with the indoor items and furniture outside. Two, try to keep that stuff in the back. The keg stands in the front, the beer pong tables and so forth. I mean, all that could hopefully be done in the backyard and have just as much fun with it. When it comes to things like noise complaints, Lord knows our police department, they've got enough to worry about than responding to noise complaints. So it's really a good idea just to take it upon yourself to be respectful of your neighbors. One thing that is always recommended is if you're having some kind of social gathering, a party like that, reach out to your neighbors, go talk to them, say, hey, we're planning to do this. I just want to let you know, this is what the plan is, and just make them aware so it's not a surprise to them. They may voice some concerns at the time, and that gives you a chance to be proactive in, how you approach those.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, these are complaints, like the noise complaint would be for police, but again, they've got a lot more to worry about. We really want to try to avoid that if possible. But if you must make a complaint to police for something like a noise violation, then the non-emergency number is the way to go.
I've got this.
Good.
This is the one that I wrote down.
Spit it out.
329-4315.
Nice.
Is the police non-emergency
That's what I had
number.
too. So we're on the same.
Well, thank God, because if we didn't, we were going to have an information disconnect, which is not what we want in our office. But yeah, so I think that's something to kind of keep in mind too, that again, that non-emergency number kind of covers a bunch of different things within it, but specifically when we were just talking about noise complaints. But I feel like that is a way that you can, if you feel like you've gotten to that extent, at least you do have an outlet, you do have an avenue, just don't use 911 for that. It's not needed.
I think going back to what I just said, to the social events and all of this stuff we've talked about, really reach out to your neighbors.
Yeah, a lot of it can
get to know them a little bit, and hopefully you'll get along and you can resolve all this stuff within yourselves.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, Brock, I feel like we have covered so much in this, and I hope, to anybody listening and to the viewers of this, that it helps. If it doesn't help you directly, it helps a neighbor, a friend, a colleague that maybe have some of these issues, and you at least kind of have a little bit more information with this. Because I feel, again, it's a lot of information, but it's really helpful too.
Yeah, it was good to be in here. Good to be a part of the Green Tea podcast.
I know. It's, when you see everything, and this will not be the only time we bring you in here, but we got to let your brain heal. There's a lot of information we pulled out of there, so we'll give you the rest of the day off and bring you in.
Sounds real good, actually.
Well, Brock, thank you so much for coming in. We appreciate it. Thanks, everybody, for tuning into another episode of the Green Tea Podcast. I want to thank everybody involved with this, and we will be back with our next episode. Like I said and mentioned before, it's going to be a real page turner, so you don't want to miss it. Got a lot of great stuff coming in. That's all you need to know. He already knows what's coming. You don't know what's coming, but you will soon. So thanks again for everyone for tuning in to the Green Tea Podcast. We'll see you next episode.